Good morning and happy Thanksgiving. I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Thursday, November 28th, 2024. This is The Excerpt. Today, the latest from the Middle East after a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Plus, several Trump cabinet picks have been targeted with threats. And how to keep Thanksgiving civil today, weeks after the tense election. Israeli military strikes killed at least 17 Palestinians across Gaza earlier today as Israel stepped up bombardments in central parts of the enclave. Months of attempts to negotiate a ceasefire have brought few results, and negotiations are now on hold. Mediator Qatar, seen as a critical player to negotiations, has suspended its efforts until the sides are prepared to make concessions. Meanwhile, a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas's Lebanese ally Hezbollah took effect before dawn yesterday. The ceasefire was brokered by the U.S. and France and raises hopes of ending more than a year of cross-border strikes. The ceasefire began at 4 a.m. local time after it was approved by Israel's security cabinet and then announced by President Joe Biden. It appears to have held in the day or so since coming into effect. A number of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet nominees have been targeted with violent threats, according to Trump's transition team yesterday. The threats occurred on Tuesday night and yesterday morning and included bomb threats and swatting, Trump transition spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said in a statement. Swatting refers to attacks where people falsely report emergencies or crimes in progress to police, sending them to locations where no emergency occurred. In response to a USA Today request for comment, an FBI official said the Bureau is actively investigating and is aware of numerous bomb threats and swatting incidents targeting incoming administration nominees and appointees. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who Trump tapped to be his ambassador to the United Nations, was among the nominees targeted with attacks. Stefanik and her family were driving home to New York for Thanksgiving when they were informed of the bomb threat, Stefanik's office said in a statement. Former Congressman Lee Zeldin, tapped by Trump to lead the Environmental Protection Agency, also said he was a target, as was Pete Hegseth, the Fox News personality and Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. Americans frustrated with inflation may have helped Donald Trump win the election this month, but the president-elect may be stoking future price growth before he even takes office in January. Trump this week announced he would impose broad new tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China in an effort to crack down on illegal immigration and drugs. All products entering the U.S. from Canada and Mexico would face a 25% tariff, he said on Truth Social, and goods from China would see a 10% hit. In 2023 dollars, the tariffs announced Monday would erode the purchasing power of the average American household by $1,200. That's according to Ernie Tedeschi, Director of Economics at the Yale Budget Lab. Though consumers may be able to shift some spending patterns from items that are imported to domestic versions, for example, that's not possible with every category of consumer goods, he said. One example, agriculture. The United States is Mexico's largest agricultural trading partner, buying about 92% of Mexican exports in the category, according to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. If the cost of discretionary items like electronics or apparel goes up, consumers might be able to delay or skip those purchases, Tedeschi said. But tariffs on fresh food would be harder to substitute, at least in the short term, while retailers search for other suppliers, he noted. You can read more with a link in today's show notes. It's Thanksgiving after a tense presidential election, and navigating politics around the dinner table can be tricky. I caught up with USA Today chief political correspondent Phillip M. Bailey to chat about how to keep things civil this holiday season. Hello, Phillip. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, man.
So, it's obviously an election year, Thanksgiving. What are the unique challenges, Phillip, to keeping the peace today, just weeks after such a heated election season?
Well, look, the calendar kind of screws us all a little bit here in this country, right? Like the first Tuesday of November is the election every 4 years for president, at least. And then a few weeks later, we all get together to break bread. And look, our politics are divided in this country. And sometimes that happens even within families. I'm sure there are families that are all Democratic who voted for Harris who are maybe commiserating. I'm sure there are families in this country that are all Trump and are celebrating. But for those who have mixed political families, kids grow up, they move to different parts of the country, they have different life experiences, they go off to college, and they just have different perspectives on these things. I think this can be, particularly this election, where there are really some sore feelings, particularly on the Democratic side. I think this Thanksgiving, more than any other, will be a test of those family values and Thanksgiving and holiday cheer.
So, Philip, why are politics really often considered such a no topic at events like Thanksgiving? What is it that just gets everyone so riled up?
Families are already, oftentimes dysfunctional, and we know these people very well. They're our relatives. So there are already some sort of sore feelings, and people remember who didn't, pass the butter, pass the turkey, or even outside of Thanksgiving, maybe have some raw feelings about an aunt or an uncle or a cousin. And then you add politics to it. I think there was a poll that actually was done by CBS YouGov that showed that, right behind politics, faith is another issue that people try to avoid on Thanksgiving. And I think it's honestly because our families, the people that we're most intimate with, the people who we're closest with, often hurt us the most, right? They're the ones who tell us what they really think about things unfiltered, not on social media. I think that the in real life space of the dinner table is where you hear that uncle, you hear that aunt who share with you some really sharp opinions. And look, I have folks who I know in my personal life who say, I have friends who voted for Harris, or I have friends who voted for Trump, and they're not really eager to talk to them about this. And I think most psychologists and other family therapists and other folks are recommending that you try to avoid everything altogether and sort of emphasize what this holiday is really about. It's getting together. It's being thankful that we're with each other. I think particularly if you have family members who have died and who are no longer with you, think about them, I think, probably more so than anything else.
That's great advice, Philip. So, for some folks, it is just unavoidable. Politics will enter the conversation at some point today. If you're going to talk politics, what are some specific topics to maybe try and avoid?
Well, look, I think the one thing you probably would want to avoid talking about are the election results itself and whether or not you're pleased with it. I think everyone pretty much knows who's happy and who's sad and upset. I think even I commented on social media that this is the first election, Taylor, where I know exactly how people voted by how they were looking the days and the week or so after the election. People weren't really hiding their cards at all about how they felt about this. So I don't know if there's a particular subject that people should talk about, but I think certainly the results and the raw feelings from it is something that I think you're going to see most folks try to avoid this holiday season.
Well, what are some ways maybe to bring politics into conversation in a healthy, good faith way this holiday season?
I think one thing that we can establish here is that, look, President Biden and President Trump met each other at the White House after a very nasty campaign. The two of them, certainly when Joe Biden was the nominee, certainly weren't friendly, certainly weren't talking about each other in uplifting and high ways. For our democracy to work, we need losers' consent. I think Joe Biden doing what Donald Trump failed to do 4 years ago, which was accept the results and meet with his successor. Remember, Donald Trump did not do that in 2020. He maintained, and I think still maintains falsely, that he won the 2020 election. There are some Democrats, though, who aren't happy about that either. I think what we're going to see is a real challenging of our norms. So I think it's very hard for folks to keep those norms in mind and in the forefront. But I think that example, right, of President Biden inviting Trump to the White House and the two of them shaking hands and being able to sit down, and we know that they disagree on a whole lot. I've written plenty about that. I think that there is something to reflect on here is that after this election, the walls didn't come tumbling down. Our democracy held. But I think there is going to be an ongoing and continued debate as Donald Trump takes power back, how much those norms can hold. He has been someone who has consistently challenged those norms, has taken on the establishment. And I think there's a lot of fear, particularly among Democrats and on the left, about how he'll administer his second term.
Great. Phillip M. Bailey is USA Today's chief political correspondent. Thank you, Phillip, and happy holidays.
You too, man. Happy holidays.
A California man who was reported missing 25 years ago is set to be reunited with his sister after a USA Today article published in May alerted the woman to her siblings' whereabouts, authorities say. The report, which sought to identify an unknown patient at a Los Angeles County hospital, was sent to the woman by a friend of hers. That was confirmed on Facebook by the Lassen County Sheriff's Office in Northern California. The patient was discovered in South Los Angeles in April. Officials at the hospital asked for the public's assistance in identifying the man, who is nonverbal and could not communicate his name. For the next 6 months, the hospital's social services department was unable to reach any family members for the patient. That all changed on Friday when his sister told the Lassen County Sheriff's Office that she believed the unidentified patient was her long-lost brother. She said the man was reported missing from Doyle, California in 1999 and not heard from since. The holidays are often hectic. Is it time to maybe slow down? Slow living is a radical approach to self-care, which celebrates a less hectic pace of life along with making mindful choices to enhance our well-being. Author Rachel Schwartzman, whose new book Slowing came out this fall, joins my colleague Dana Taylor later today, beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, to give us a better understanding of the slow living movement. And thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your audio, and if you're on a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm Taylor Wilson, and I'll be back tomorrow with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.